Okay, back to where we left off. The next din here in Kitzur is what's called the rules of an after bracha. Bracha achreina. Now, on fruits, vegetables, excluding the fruits of the Shivas Haminim, of the 7 species that Eretz Yisrael was praised with, which means wheat, barley, chitosera, grapes, figs, pomegranates, olives, and tomato dates. So you have wheat, barley, grapes, figs, pomegranates, olives, and dates. Those are the things, 7 things that you make a special after bracha. But all fruits and vegetables that are not in that category, the after bracha is buried in the nefashos. Even if you ate and drank, so as long as you ate a kazayas, which as we'll soon learn is 1 ounce, and you drink a revius, which is approximately 3 ounces, anytime you drink or eat a revius, then you have to make an after bracha. So, what?
Not the 5 grains, only wheat and barley, not spelt rye.
Spelt rye, and there's our offshoots of chita seder. The wheat and barley are the general ones. Offshoots of them is the other 3. Right, oats, rye, and spelt. Those are offshoots of wheat and barley. So it's all part of the wheat and barley family. Therefore, if somebody else is going to eat a cookie from oat flour or bread from oat flour, then if they ate a kazayas, then they're going to have to do a berachas hamazon or mezainis, depending on what they eat. Okay, now the only time you make an after bracha is if you ate enough. Like we said, in order to make a bracha achreina on food, it has to be a kazayas, which is in practical language 1 ounce. In order to make an after bracha on drinks, it needs to be a revius, which is 3 ounces. Now what happens if somebody ate a half an ounce of a apple, a half an ounce of a pear, or a half an ounce of apple, a half an ounce of chocolate? They both are food, they both have the same after bracha burning nefashos. So if somebody eats a half an ounce of a fruit, half an ounce of chocolate or popcorn or whatever, all these things after bracha is burning nefashos. So because everything together equaled a kazayas 1 ounce, so then you make an after bracha. If all drinks, let least wine out of this situation, all drinks, if you drink 1.5 ounces of orange juice and 1.5 ounces of apple juice, they combine to a revius. Foods combine with foods, drinks combine with drinks. Food and drinks don't combine. So what happens if somebody ate a half a kazayas of an apple and drank a half a revius of juice? So there is no after bracha because food and drink don't combine, according to halacha. In many, many din, like eating on Yom Kippur, after brachas, there's a lot of dinim that food and drinks don't combine. So in order to make an after bracha, you need 1 ounce of food. It doesn't matter as long as they have the same after bracha. Drinks, all the drinks combine. In fact, even if somebody, we'll leave again, let's leave wine out because that's a unique thing. Now there are opinions that hold, big opinion, great opinions that hold, that the Alter Rebbe brings it down also, by the way. If you eat a whole fruit, even if it's less than a kazayas, but because it's whole, you make an after bracha on it. That means there are, according to many opinions in halacha, if somebody eats a cherry or a grape or a date, whatever. So there are many opinions that say the fact that it's whole already demands an after bracha. Yeah, it's the same thing. But because there's a lot of opinions that say no, you need to eat a kazayas to make an after bracha. So halacha says if you really want to be careful, if you're eating grapes, either don't eat a whole one or eat enough to make an kazayas to make an after bracha. In other words, you don't just eat one little fruit. a little tomato, let's say. So according to a certain opinion, you have to make an after bracha. It's a whole tomato, but it's tiny. So halacha said, Al brings that also, lachatchila, you should make sure, don't put yourself into the doubt. If you're eating tomatoes, don't eat one little one, eat enough that it should be a kazayas. You're eating fruits or cherries, make sure you have enough, or grapes or whatever it is. Because otherwise you're really going into a doubt, the question halacha, what the after bracha would be in that case or not. Or if you do make an after bracha. Okay? Now what happens though, that's only if you eat a whole thing, putting it into your mouth at the same time. Technically what happens, you take a grape, cut it in half, and then you eat both halves, everybody says it's not enough for bracha achrena. If it's a whole fruit that you eat whole, like a cherry, a grape, a small tomato, then it's a question halacha if you have to make an after bracha. But if you take a tiny tomato and cut it in half and you eat both halves, then you don't have to make a bracha achrena. It's not considered eating a whole fruit, and it's not enough obviously to be 1 ounce of food. Same thing. You have to eat put the whole thing in your mouth to have that question. Now normally when people eat the cherry, or a grape, they eat the whole grape in their mouth. They don't bite into, that's if you're afraid you're going to choke, God forbid. But normally a person takes a whole grape, puts it into the mouth. A cherry, Some people have very big mouths, figuratively, literally, so maybe they can take a big fruit in their mouth. I don't know. Okay, now, what happens, somebody eats a half an ounce of cake, a half an ounce of an apple. The problem is, the after bracha of cake is alamichya. The after bracha for an apple is burn nefashis. Now you ate a kazayas between both of them because you ate a half an ounce of cake, half an ounce of apple, but it's a different after bracha. So what do? So the halacha says you make the lesser of the bracha, meaning burn nefashis is a step down from alamichya. Alamichya is a step down from benching, from birchas hamazon. So therefore, the din is, if somebody eats half a kazayas apple, half a kazayas of cake, you ate a whole kazayas, so you have to make an after bracha, but the after bracha is burn nefashis. Okay, that's that din. Or let's say somebody ate, same thing, what happens if somebody ate a half an ounce of bread, a half an ounce of a cookie? So you can bench because you didn't have enough, but the fact is you ate a kazayis. So then the after bracha would be alamichya, because then it just goes down a little bit. Okay.
But usually we say if you wash, and you didn't have a kazayis of bread, you could be mashing the kazayis with fruit. So now you're having...
That's first of all, that's b'diavad. Secondly, here you're not full. You ate a half a piece of bread and half a piece of cake. Most people don't get full from that. So then, the question, what after bracha do you make? I can't bench because I didn't have a full kazayis of bread. So the din is, you make, the lesser bracha would be alamichya, and therefore you make a bracha alamichya.
But together it was kazayis.
Yeah. If not, there's no bracha. There's no bracha achrena. What?
When you have to say alamichya, began nefashot, does it matter which one goes first and then second?
The custom is you say alamichya first and then burn nefashos. If somebody by mistake made a burn nefashos first and then they realized they had cake, so they have to make an alamichya. They have to make an alamichya afterwards. Burning nefashos, we mentioned this in the past. Shahakol is a bracha that covers everything. If somebody made on cake shahakol, they do not have to make another bracha. Okay? But if somebody, for an after bracha, instead of alamichya, they made a burn nefashos, they have to make alamichya again anyway, and burn nefashos didn't cover it. What?
It's not related to this. You said So if you pass, if someone has enough mezainis to be full, he says I might see and benches, right?
It depends what type of mezainis it is. It depends. We didn't get there yet.
In the case of
No, because there's a lot of... If it's a thick batter, thin batter, what the ingredients are, it's a lot of details with that.
The evidence is shahakol. You eat on grape juice or wine on shahakol if it covers everything, or is that something that kind of stands on its own? It said shahakol.
No. If somebody by mistake on bread or wine made a shahakol, it covers it. But the brain of fashis is not like a shahakol of after brachas.
No.
But for instance, by smelling things, B'chad Ashkenazim are not into smelling brachas too much. But the Sfardim L'moshe are very much into smelling things and making brachas, by bris, by this. But over there, Berimnei Psamim is the shahakol of the smelling brachas. In other words, if you're supposed to say Atzi Psamim, Isbei Psamim, let's say, because one's a plant or one's a tree, whatever, and you made Berimnei Psamim, you cover it anyway.
Nothing smelled good in Russia, that's why they didn't have it.
I don't know.
in the case of the bread and mezainis,
Yeah.
Africa's ice of each. If you had a lot, then you have to bench bread.
If you had a lot of food, you had a whole meal, and you ate a full meal, and you got full. I'll give you a simple example. People go to a wedding, let's call it a wedding or a bar mitzvah, and they go wash, right? And they eat a tiny piece of bread. That's wrong to do, by the way. You have to eat a kazayas. If you washed and you made on till yadayim, you have to eat a kibetza, which is 2 ounces. You can't make a bracha, we learned. We can't make a bracha on till yadayim for bread unless if you were going to eat 2 ounces, which is a double kazayas. If somebody knows they're going to eat one, let's say for argument's sake, 1 slice of rye bread is an ounce, 2 slices are 2 ounces. Okay? So if somebody eats a slice of rye bread, that's a kazayas, it's 1 ounce, you have to bench on it. But in order to make the bracha asher ketsham mitzvah on the tilas yadayim, you have to eat 2 ounces. If somebody knows I'm going to have 1 slice of bread, or a half a slice of bread, so the din is they have to wash even on a crumb, in most cases, and then you make ametzi. You have to wash. You do not make on the til sidayim. You make ametzi, but then you can bench. Now, what happens if you ate other things at the meal? You went to the wedding and you had a little piece of challah. Okay, people do this Shabbos also. They wash Shabbos by the meal, and then they end up eating a tiny piece of bread, but they eat the whole. Let's keep it nice, the language. They fresh nicely. But they eat the whole meal and they're full. So logically, they have to bench. If they became full from things that are, it's called the lafis pan of sapas, things that were made to accompany bread. In other words, if somebody, let's say washed, for argument's sake, have a small piece of bread, and then they ate fruit. It wasn't their plan to be in a meal. They ate fruit, or they ate chocolate. And they ate 12 bars of chocolate, and now they're full. They don't bench. If you ate fish, meat, chicken, eggs, cheese, things like that, and you get full, so then it's considered as if you got full from the bread itself. So then you would have to bench. But that's only b'diavad, not l'chatchila. L'chatchila you have to eat a kazayis of bread. But if somebody's going to a function, or even Shabbos, they know they're on a diet of wheat, they don't want to eat wheat, whatever. So they want to be gluten-free. There's no gluten-free, but they want to wash on Shabbos. So you have to be careful. You can't make al natilas yadayim. If you know you're not going to be eating 2 ounces of bread, which is a double kazayas, you wash even on a crumb, but you don't make al natilas yadayim unless you're going to eat 2 ounces. Benching, though, is on a kazayas. Now, what happens if a person ate a meal and they had a half a kazayas of bread, but they got full from all the other foods? But that means fish, chicken, meat, all those types of things. So then they have to bench anyway. But that's b'diavad, not l'chatchila.
Or we're saying on nittilas time. Like if you have less than 2 days, you have other stuff with it.
No, that doesn't. You mean does it combine for? No. Because that's a good question. Al Netilas Yadayim is a unique bracha for bread. Okay, benching is because V'achalta v'savata, you were full. So that's a din in being full. So as long as you ate bread, even though you didn't get full only from the bread, you got full from everything else, you have to bench. But if I ate, let's say, I made Al Netilas Yadayim and I have a small piece of bread, but I got full from everything else, that doesn't help for Al Netilas Yadayim. Al Netilas Yadayim is a unique din of bread. In order to wash and make a bracha on bread, you need to have a kibbutz of bread.
So is it the
It is a bracha levatala.
What if like,
and said on Netilas Yadayim you have no choice but to have 2 ounces or it's
Yeah, then you have to eat 2 ounces. What?
you're eating like pizza that's like attached to bread.
That's part of the bread. What?
If you had in mind to have 2 ounces, but then you were nimla, change your mind.
So then, b'diavad, it's good because when you made the bracha, you had in mind that you're going to be eating. Okay, machat shinazon ma'aser 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 ma'aser